In a world where global tensions simmer just beneath the surface, sports has always been humanity's common language. But what happens when that language becomes weaponized? What happens when basketball, America's gift to the world, becomes a battleground for international politics? Tonight we're diving into a story that nobody saw coming, a story where geopolitics and sports don't just intersect, they violently collide. At the center of this diplomatic storm stands an unlikely figure, NBA superstar Jayson Tatum. Known for his silky, smooth jumper and ice-cold demeanor on the court, Tatum now finds himself firing shots at one of the world's most powerful leaders. This isn't just another sports controversy. This is US versus Russia. This is democracy versus authoritarianism. This is the moment when an injured basketball player became the voice of a generation, standing up to Vladimir Putin himself. It started with inflammatory remarks, it escalated with threats, and it exploded when a 27-year-old NBA star decided he'd heard enough. What do you think? Should athletes stay out of politics, or is this exactly what we need right now? Drop your thoughts in the comments. The backstory runs deeper than you might think. While Jayson Tatum recovers from his devastating Achilles injury, an injury that could sideline him for the entire 2025-26 season, tensions between the United States and Russia have reached a boiling point. President Trump's recent criticism of Putin, calling him absolutely crazy after massive Russian attacks on Ukraine, set the stage for what would become an unprecedented diplomatic crisis. But Putin didn't target politicians or diplomats in his response. He targeted something more American than apple pie, basketball. In a calculated move that shocked the international community, the Russian president launched a verbal assault on the NBA itself, calling it an arm of American propaganda and threatening to ban US players from participating in any international competitions on Russian soil. The statement came just days after the US State Department imposed new sanctions on Moscow, adding another layer to an already complex web of international relations. But Putin's remarks went beyond policy. They were personal. He questioned the integrity of US athletes, suggesting they were brainwashed representatives of a decaying culture, and specifically mentioned high-profile basketball stars as symbols of Western arrogance. The basketball world was stunned. Players, coaches, and fans alike struggled to process what they had just heard. And then Jayson Tatum responded, the injury that changed everything. To understand the magnitude of Tatum's response, you need to understand where he's coming from. May 12, 2025, a date that will forever be etched in Boston Celtics history. Game 4 of the Eastern Conference semifinals against the New York Knicks, Madison Square Garden. The stage was set for another classic Tatum performance, and deliver he did. 42 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, and 2 blocks. Tatum was single-handedly keeping the Celtics' championship hopes alive, tying Larry Bird and John Havlicek for the most 40-point playoff games in franchise history. The kid from St. Louis was writing his name in Celtic lore. Then, with 2:58 left in the fourth quarter, everything changed. Diving for a loose ball, the kind of hustle play that defines championship teams, Tatum suffered a non-contact Achilles tendon rupture. The silence in Madison Square Garden was deafening. Fans who had been booing Tatum moments earlier watched in stunned silence as he was helped to the locker room. The surgery came the next day. The prognosis? 7 to 15 months of recovery. For a player who had just signed a 5-year, $315 million Supermax extension, it was devastating. For the Celtics, who had championship aspirations, it was season-ending. For Tatum personally, it was a test of character that would define his legacy. But here's what Putin didn't count on. Injury doesn't diminish a champion's spirit. It amplifies it. Recent social media posts from Tatum's recovery have painted a picture of frustration mixed with determination. Day 45. This is some bullshit, he posted on June 28th, showing the raw emotion of a competitor forced to watch from the sidelines. His father, Justin, told ESPN they were looking at an 8 to 9 month recovery timeline, optimistic by Achilles standards, but still ruling out most of the 2025-26 season. Here's what I want to know. Do you think Tatum's injury actually gave him more credibility to speak out? Does being sidelined give athletes a different perspective on global issues? Teammates like Torrey Craig have reported that Tatum is in good spirits and maintaining his routine at the Auerbach Center. But behind that positive facade was a player watching his sport, his livelihood, his passion, being attacked by one of the world's most powerful men. And Jayson Tatum doesn't back down from anyone. The stage was set for a confrontation that would transcend basketball and enter the realm of international diplomacy. Putin's calculated attack on American basketball. Vladimir Putin isn't known for making idle threats. Every word, every gesture, Every public statement is calculated for maximum impact. So when the Russian president set his sights on the NBA, the basketball world should have known this wasn't just political theater. This was war. The attack came during a press conference that was supposed to focus on domestic Russian affairs. But Putin, never one to miss an opportunity to project strength, pivoted to what he called the cultural imperialism of American sports entertainment. His words were sharp, deliberate, and designed to cut deep. The NBA represents everything wrong with American culture, Putin declared, his trademark cold stare fixed on the cameras. It is an arm of American propaganda, disguising political indoctrination as entertainment. These so-called athletes are nothing more than brainwashed representatives of a decaying culture. But Putin wasn't finished. In a move that shocked diplomatic observers, he announced that Russia would consider banning US basketball players from participating in any international competitions held on Russian soil. This wasn't just about the Olympics. It was about EuroLeague games, exhibition matches, and any basketball-related activities that might bring American players to Russian territory. The timing wasn't coincidental. This came just days after President Trump imposed new sanctions on Moscow and called Putin absolutely crazy, following devastating attacks on Ukraine. Putin's response? Attack America where it hurts, its cultural exports. The reference to high-profile basketball stars and Western arrogance was particularly pointed. Putin knows the power of American basketball on the global stage. From Michael Jordan's Bulls dynasty in the 1990s to LeBron James' global activism, NBA stars have become some of America's most effective cultural ambassadors. By attacking the NBA, Putin was attacking American soft power itself. Think about this for a moment. Why do you think Putin specifically targeted basketball instead of other American sports? What makes the NBA such a powerful symbol of American influence? The international basketball community's reaction was swift and divided. FIBA, the sport's global governing body, issued a carefully worded statement about keeping politics out of sports while respecting the sovereignty of all member nations. Translation: they were scared. European clubs that regularly host exhibition games against NBA teams suddenly found themselves in an impossible position. The EuroLeague, which has partnerships with the NBA, faced potential diplomatic complications that could affect scheduling and player movements. Even more concerning was the precedent this set. If Russia could unilaterally ban American basketball players, what would stop other authoritarian regimes from following suit? The implications extended far beyond sports, touching on broader questions of cultural exchange and diplomatic relations. But Putin had miscalculated one crucial factor. He had just made this personal for every NBA player, especially those with the platform and courage to fight back. The comeback that shook the world, May 15, 2025. A routine post-game press conference after a Celtics practice session. Jayson Tatum, still on crutches, was supposed to give a standard injury update. Instead, he delivered a verbal knockout punch that would be replayed millions of times across the globe. The question came from a reporter, asking about Putin's comments on the NBA. Most athletes would have deflected, given some corporate speak about focusing on recovery or letting others handle politics. Tatum? He leaned into the microphone and delivered a response that instantly became the stuff of legend. You can threaten, you can talk, but on the court, that's where we settle things. And trust me, you don't want that smoke. 8 words. And trust me, you don't want that smoke. 8 words that would launch 1,000 think pieces, ignite social media debates, and place a 27-year-old basketball player at the center of international relations. The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters scrambled to ask follow-up questions. But Tatum wasn't done. With the poise of a veteran diplomat and the confidence of a champion, he continued, "Basketball is bigger than politics because it brings people together. What Putin doesn't understand is that you can't threaten your way to respect. On the court, we earn it. And when I'm healthy, I'll be ready to show anybody, and I mean anybody, what American basketball is really about." The video clip was trending worldwide within an hour. Tatum vs. Putin exploded across Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Sports journalists, political analysts, and fans from every corner of the globe weighed in. Some called it the most powerful athlete statement since Muhammad Ali refused to fight in Vietnam. Others warned about dangerous escalation through sports diplomacy. Here's what I need to know from you. Was Tatum right to respond so forcefully, or should he have taken a more diplomatic approach? And more importantly, do you think he could actually back up those words on the court? The response revealed something deeper about Tatum's character. This wasn't a hot-headed reaction from a young athlete seeking attention. This was a calculated statement from someone who understood the power of his platform and wasn't afraid to use it. Within hours, fellow NBA stars began sharing their own responses. LeBron James posted a simple crown emoji with the American flag. Stephen Curry retweeted the video with fire emojis. Even international players like Giannis Antetokounmpo and Luka Doncic showed their support, proving that Putin had united the basketball world against him. The basketball court had become a battlefield, and Jayson Tatum had just declared war. Global reactions and the White House response. When a basketball player's press conference starts trending in political circles, you know something unprecedented is happening. Tatum's "you don't want that smoke" comment didn't just go viral. It went nuclear, forcing governments, media outlets, and diplomatic institutions to respond to what was essentially a trash talk session between an NBA star and a world leader. The White House found itself in the awkward position of having to address comments made by a professional athlete about foreign policy. Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders delivered what would become known as the sports diplomacy statement. "We praise athletes who stand for democratic values and American principles without unnecessarily fueling international tensions. Mr. Tatum's passion for his sport and his country is admirable, though we encourage all Americans to pursue dialogue over confrontation in international matters." Translation: "We love that he stood up to Putin, but please don't start World War III over basketball." The international reaction was even more fascinating. NATO allies found themselves commenting on athletic trash talk. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz praised the democratic spirit of American athletes. French President Emmanuel Macron called it a reminder that culture and sport transcend political boundaries. Even Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky weighed in, posting a video of himself shooting baskets with the caption, "Sports unite, dictators divide." But it was the Russian response that truly revealed the impact of Tatum's words. Russian state media went into overdrive. RT, Russia Today, ran a segment titled, "American Basketball Star Threatens World Peace." Pravda published an op-ed calling Tatum's comments a childish provocation from a militaristic culture. Most tellingly, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov held an emergency press briefing to address what he called inappropriate athletic rhetoric. What's your take on this? Should world leaders be responding to comments from athletes, or does this show how powerful sports figures have become in global discourse? Behind the scenes, diplomatic channels were buzzing. According to sources close to the State Department, Russian diplomats had actually filed a formal complaint about Tatum's comments, arguing they constituted threatening language from a representative of American soft power. The fact that Russia was taking basketball trash talk to diplomatic levels revealed just how effectively Tatum had gotten under Putin's skin. Social media analytics showed that the phrase Tatum vs Putin was trending in over 40 countries. The hashtag generated more engagement than most political news stories, proving that sports could capture global attention in ways that traditional diplomacy never could. International basketball federations found themselves caught in the crossfire. FIBA issued multiple statements trying to maintain neutrality, while several European leagues quietly began discussing contingency plans for potential diplomatic fallout. The world was watching, and a basketball court had become the most important arena in international relations. The cultural war behind the basketball court. What makes Tatum's confrontation with Putin so fascinating isn't just the personalities involved, it's what they represent. This isn't simply USA versus Russia. This is a clash between two fundamentally different visions of what power means in the 21st century. Putin represents the old model: authority through fear, respect through dominance, influence through control. His approach to international relations mirrors his approach to domestic politics: centralized power, limited dissent, and the projection of strength above all else. When Putin attacks the NBA, he's attacking something he can't control: the soft power of American culture. Tatum represents something entirely different: earned respect, competitive excellence, and the confidence that comes from knowing you can back up your words with performance. His response to Putin wasn't just athletic bravado, it was a declaration that in the modern world, authenticity beats authoritarianism. The cultural implications run deeper than most realize. Basketball has become America's most successful cultural export precisely because it embodies democratic values, merit-based success, individual excellence within team frameworks, and the idea that anyone can rise to the top through hard work and talent. Putin's attack on the NBA was really an attack on these principles. Consider the global reach of NBA stars compared to Russian cultural figures. How many Russian athletes can you name versus American basketball players? The asymmetry is staggering, and it drives Putin's frustration. Russia's cultural influence peaked decades ago, while American basketball continues to grow globally every year. Here's something to think about. In your opinion, is basketball diplomacy actually more effective than traditional diplomacy? Can athletes like Tatum change minds in ways that politicians can't? The generational aspect is crucial too. Tatum represents a new breed of athlete activist who isn't afraid to use their platform for larger purposes. Unlike previous generations who were told to shut up and dribble, today's NBA stars understand their global influence and aren't hesitant to wield it. Putin's mistake was thinking he could intimidate this generation of athletes the way authoritarian leaders intimidated previous ones. The modern NBA star is globally connected, financially independent, and culturally influential in ways that make traditional threats ineffective. The real battle being fought here is for the hearts and minds of young people worldwide. Putin offers a vision of strength through submission. Tatum offers a vision of strength through achievement. One requires fear, the other inspires dedication. This cultural war extends beyond sports into technology, entertainment, education, and every other realm where ideas compete for global influence. Basketball just happens to be the battlefield where the conflict became visible. When the dust settles, this moment will be remembered not as a sports controversy, but as a defining moment in the broader struggle between democratic and authoritarian values. As we wrap up this unprecedented story, one thing becomes crystal clear. This is no longer just a game. What started as a diplomatic spat has evolved into something much larger, a cultural collision that reveals the fault lines of our global moment. Jayson Tatum's 8 words, "And trust me, you don't want that smoke," will be remembered as more than athletic trash talk. They represent a generational shift in how American athletes view their role on the world stage. Gone are the days when sports figures stayed quiet about global issues. Today's athletes understand their platform and aren't afraid to use it. The deeper story here is about soft power in the 21st century. Putin's attack on the NBA wasn't random, it was strategic. He recognizes that American basketball represents something Russia can't compete with, global cultural influence built on merit, excellence and inspiration rather than fear and control. But Putin miscalculated. By attacking basketball, he didn't diminish American influence, he strengthened it. He united the global basketball community, gave American athletes a cause to rally around, and made himself look petty in the process. When you're a world leader responding to basketball players, you've already lost the cultural war. Final question for you. 5 years from now, how do you think this moment will be remembered? As a footnote in sports history, or as a turning point in how we think about athlete activism and global politics? The implications extend far beyond Tatum and Putin. This moment signals that the next generation of global leaders won't just be politicians and business executives. They'll be athletes, entertainers, and cultural figures who command attention and loyalty in ways that traditional power structures can't match. For Tatum personally, this controversy has elevated him from NBA star to global figure. When he returns from his Achilles injury, and he will return, he'll carry the weight of representing something larger than basketball excellence. He'll embody the idea that American values can't be intimidated by authoritarian threats. The basketball court has always been a place where talent speaks louder than politics, where performance matters more than posturing, and where respect is earned rather than demanded. Putin thought he could change those rules. Jayson Tatum reminded him that on the court, there's only one rule that matters. Game recognizes game. And Putin, he just got called out by someone who knows how to play the game better than he ever will. This is more than basketball. This is democracy versus authoritarianism. This is the future versus the past. And right now, the future is winning. Drop your thoughts below. Who do you think won this exchange, and what does it mean for the future of sports and politics?